I don't really know when it happened the first time. There wasn't some big moment, no dramatic music. Maybe it was one of those late nights when the house was finally quiet. The kind of quiet where you hear the fridge humming in the kitchen, a lamp on, the rest of the world already asleep. I remember sitting at the kitchen table, just staring at a cup of coffee going cold, not scrolling my phone, not talking to anyone, just thinking. And suddenly I realized something that honestly scared me. I could list every mistake I'd made that day, every awkward thing I'd said, every moment I wished I could take back, every task I hadn't finished. But I couldn't name one thing I had done right. Not one. And that realization hit me harder than any criticism I'd ever heard from anyone else. Because this time, it wasn't the world judging me, it was me. And that felt different.
I remember tracing little circles on the table with my fingertip, just sitting there, asking myself a question I had never really put into words before. When did I stop being on my own side? That question stayed. It didn't leave the kitchen with me that night. It followed me. It followed me through busy offices, through the glow of computer screens late at night, through tense conversations in small conference rooms, through those tired drives home through the suburbs when the streetlights blur a little. It stayed with me because the truth is simple and uncomfortable. Most of us don't lose respect for ourselves in one big dramatic scene. We don't just wake up one day and say, "That's it, I'm done being kind to myself." No, we lose it slowly, quietly, drop by drop. So quietly that we don't even notice, until one day we look in the mirror and feel strangely distant from the person staring back, like we've been living next to ourselves, not with ourselves. And here is the strange paradox I stumbled into later in life. The people who care the most, who try the hardest, who give the most of themselves, those are often the same people who talk to themselves in the harshest way. Maybe that sounds familiar. Maybe you fall asleep replaying the conversation where you wish you'd said something smarter. Maybe you scroll through your day in your mind and see only the flaws. Maybe there's a quiet belief in you that respect has to be earned from everyone, except yourself. You know, there's something I've said in rooms full of people, and I've had to repeat it to myself many times. When your inner voice speaks only in punishment, your soul eventually stops listening. The good news is, that voice is not permanent. It's not your destiny. It's just practiced. And anything practiced can be unpracticed. Anything learned can be relearned. Anything repeated can be rewritten. That's why I want to bring you into a simple practice. A practice that changed me. And over the years, it quietly changed a lot of people who were tired of criticizing themselves, but honestly didn't know any other way to live. This practice is so simple that when you first hear it, you might think, "That's it?" It sounds almost too gentle to matter. But don't let its softness fool you. Gentle things can move mountains when you give them time, when you give them 21 evenings. Here's the heart of it. Every night before you go to bed, you choose one moment from your day, just one. A moment when you acted in alignment with the kind of person you want to be. Not a moment of winning, not a moment of success, not something that would impress anybody on social media.
A moment of character. Then you write down why that moment mattered. Not what you achieved, what value your choice expressed.
This is not a journal of accomplishments. It's not a list of gold stars. It's a journal of identity. And after 21 days, something begins to shift. Not with fireworks, not with trumpets. More like sunrise slipping through the blinds before you're fully awake. Your inner voice starts to change. It stops sounding like a judge and starts sounding more like a companion. But before we dive deeper into the step-by-step of this practice, I want to walk with you through the shadows that make it so powerful. The shadows of self-criticism, of perfectionism, of that inner voice we never meant to build, but somehow did. Because if you've spent years seeing only your mistakes, you deserve to know why. You deserve to understand the hidden architecture behind the way you speak to yourself. The blueprint you never realized was there. Most people don't wake up and say, "Today I'll be harsh with myself." No. It happens almost innocently. A teacher's disappointed sigh. A parent's quick correction. A manager frowning at your work. A picture on social media that makes you feel small for no real reason. Piece by piece, we learn to scan our days like security cameras looking for threats. We don't look to appreciate what is steady. We look to catch what is broken. I've believed for a long time that action breeds confidence. And I've watched how the wrong kind of repetitive inner action, the constant habit of noticing what went wrong, slowly builds a voice that does not serve us. But here's the part that matters. You are not stuck with that voice. It isn't who you are. It's just who you've rehearsed. Let me tell you a story from my own life. Even now, when I think about it, my chest tightens a little. Many years ago, I was leading a workshop for a group of young professionals, software engineers, designers, analysts, the kind of bright, capable people who often underestimate themselves. After the session ended, a young woman waited until the room had emptied. Then she walked up to me. On the outside, she looked confident, sharp, put together, but her hands were trembling just a little. She said, "I know what I'm supposed to improve. People tell me all the time, but I don't know what I'm doing right. I can't see it." Her voice cracked on that last sentence, and I felt her pain because I knew exactly what she meant. It was the same feeling I'd had at that kitchen table years before. So I asked her, "Tell me one thing you did today that you're proud of, not because it was perfect, but because it was honest." She stared at the carpet for a long moment. Then she said quietly, "I listened to someone I didn't agree with, and I didn't interrupt." I nodded and asked, "And why does that matter?" Her eyes filled with tears. She said, "Because I wasn't trying to win. I was trying to understand." There it was, a moment of character, a moment of alignment, a moment deeply worthy of respect. But she had walked right past it, never even glanced at it, until someone invited her to look again. That's what this 21-day practice does. It helps you see the parts of yourself you've been walking past, the parts you've been too busy, too stressed, or too critical to notice. It helps you remember who you are beneath all the noise of criticism. And here's the beautiful truth. Self-respect does not grow from your results. It grows from your choices. Let me pause here because this matters. You can do everything right in the eyes of the world and still feel empty inside if your choices don't feel like yours. And you can stumble, struggle, even fall behind and still hold your head high if you know you made choices rooted in your values. That's why achievement without alignment feels hollow, and why small acts of integrity feel like quiet triumphs. I've met CEOs who felt like imposters. I've met exhausted nurses who questioned their worth. I've met teachers who changed lives and still couldn't see their own impact. I've met young entrepreneurs who built brilliant things, then went to bed feeling like failures. Not because they lacked evidence of their goodness, but because they lacked practice in seeing it. You may not realize it, but you already practice self-criticism every single day. You rehearse it, you repeat it, you refine it. You've practiced it so often that it feels natural. So imagine what happens when, for the first time in years, you intentionally practice self-respect. 21 evenings, 21 moments, 21 reminders that your character is not an accident. It's a choice you make quietly, again and again, even when no one is watching. And if you stay with me a little longer, I want to walk you deeper into how that inner critic is formed, why it clings to you, and how these nightly reflections begin to soften it until it no longer controls the way you see yourself. I've often wondered why the inner critic grows so loud in some people and stays softer in others. Over the years, watching faces in rooms across the country, I've come to believe something simple. The inner critic is rarely born from cruelty. It is born from fear. Fear of disappointing someone. Fear of losing belonging. Fear of not being enough in a world that never stops pointing out what you lack. Most of us learned self-criticism when we were young, long before we had the words to question it. A raised eyebrow from a teacher, a sarcastic comment from an older sibling, a parent who meant well, but believed pressure was the same as encouragement, a coach who thought the best motivation was to point out your flaws. Little by little, we began to believe a dangerous myth. The myth that improvement can only come from dissatisfaction. We started thinking things like, if I'm hard on myself, I won't get lazy. If I don't let myself feel proud, I'll stay driven. If I keep my focus on my mistakes, I'll avoid repeating them. But in my experience, the opposite is true. People flourish where they feel safe. People grow where they feel seen. People change where they feel supported. And when you become that source of safety for yourself, even for a few minutes each evening, you start to live differently, not out of fear, but out of alignment. I remember telling a friend who was burned out, you don't need more discipline. You need more kindness toward yourself. He looked at me like I'd just told him the moon was made of cotton candy. It didn't make sense to him at first. Maybe it doesn't fully make sense to you yet either. But after about a month, that friend came back and said, I didn't realize how cruel I'd been to myself. It felt normal. It felt responsible. Now I see it wasn't responsibility. It was pressure dressed up as virtue. I nodded because I knew that feeling well. The inner critic is a master of disguise. It can sound like accountability. It can sound like ambition. It can even sound like humility. But real accountability is rooted in growth, not shame. Real ambition lifts you. It doesn't crush you. Real humility is honest. not self-destructive. And that's why this simple practice, this nightly choice to name one moment of integrity, begins to loosen the critic's grip on you. Because for the first time, you are training your mind to see the difference between achievement and character. Let me give you an example. A man I once worked with was a project manager at a tech company in Seattle. He told me he always felt like a failure because his team often ran behind schedule. He carried that word, failure, around like a heavy coat, wore it everywhere. During the 21-day practice, he wrote this one evening. Today, I admitted to my team that I misjudged the timeline. I apologized honestly and asked for their ideas to fix it. When he wrote about why that moment mattered, he wrote, "It mattered because I chose honesty over ego." And something clicked inside him. He realized his worth didn't depend on flawless performance. It depended on who he chose to be when things were not perfect. That kind of shift doesn't shout, but it echoes. It begins quietly, and it stays. Now I want to take you deeper into something that might surprise you. Most people don't lack self-respect because they've done something terrible. They lack self-respect because they never learned to notice when they've done something right. Think about that for a moment. You've lived years, maybe decades, with a mind trained to search for flaws, like a metal detector searching for loose screws instead of treasure. But how often have you paused to say to yourself, I handled that conversation with patience. I kept my word today. I listened even when it was uncomfortable. I walked away from something that didn't honor me. I tried, even though I was scared. These are not small things. These are the foundation stones of self-respect. I sometimes ask people, if someone else had done the good and honest things you did today, would you admire them for it? They always nod, always. Then I ask, why don't you admire yourself for those same things? And the room always grows quiet, because the truth is hard to miss. We judge ourselves by our mistakes, and others by their intentions. But self-respect grows when we flip that. When we start judging ourselves by our intentions, and forgiving ourselves for being human. Let me tell you another story. I met a nurse at a leadership retreat. She looked worn thin, not just from long shifts at the hospital, but from carrying a belief for years that she was never enough. She told me she replayed everything. Every word she said to colleagues, every decision she made on her shift, every hint of tension with a patient or family member. She said, I don't think I've made it through a single week in the last 10 years without telling myself I failed someone. I invited her to try the 21-day practice. By day 10, she told me something remarkable. She said, I didn't realize how many times I choose compassion without even thinking about it. I always saw the moments I rushed, the times I was tired, but I didn't see the times I stayed an extra minute with a scared patient, or when I calmed a family member down, or when I apologized quickly. It's like I'm meeting myself for the first time. That's what this practice does. It introduces you to the version of yourself you've overlooked, the version that deserves respect. Now, before we move forward, I want to come back to a question that sits right at the center of this whole journey. Why do we only see our errors? Because your brain is wired for survival, not happiness. It remembers threats more vividly than safety. It spots danger faster than goodness.
It holds on to mistakes because they feel like risks. But here's the thing. You're not living in a forest fighting off predators. You're living in a world where the biggest threat, many days, is simply the way you talk to yourself when no one is listening.
Once you understand that, you can start retraining your attention. That's what these 21 evenings are really about. They shift the spotlight of your mind. They change which moments get front row seats in your memory. They move you from asking, "What did I fail at today?" to asking, "Who was I becoming today?" And when your focus changes, your identity follows. I've seen over and over that people crave appreciation, not just from others, from themselves. When you start giving yourself that warmth, that honesty, that recognition, something inside you softens, and something else inside you strengthens. It's not arrogance, it's alignment. It's the quiet dignity of someone who knows they are honestly trying to live by their values. So stay with me, because now we're getting close to the heart of this journey, the point where this practice stops being just an exercise and starts becoming a transformation. There's a moment, usually somewhere in the second week, when something unexpected begins to happen. People tell me it feels like a door opening inside them. A small door, quiet, almost shy. But once it opens, you can't help but look through it. It's the moment when you begin to realize, I'm not the person my inner critic told me I was. And that realization can be disorienting, because if you've spent years believing you were failing or falling short or never measuring up, it feels strange, almost unsettling, to see so much evidence of your own integrity written there on the page. I've seen grown men with tears in their eyes reading a simple sentence they wrote to themselves. I've watched young women sit in stunned silence, holding a notebook full of moments they had completely forgotten. I've watched people soften, truly soften, for the first time in years. There's a story from a workshop I led in Colorado that I think about often. A man in his 40s, a software architect, decided to try the practice. He told me he started it reluctantly. He expected it to feel fake, like forced positivity, something he'd roll his eyes at halfway through. But on day 14, he wrote something that changed him. He wrote, "Today I told my teenage son I was wrong, and I apologized without making an excuse." When he described the value behind that choice, he wrote, "It mattered because I cared more about my relationship than my pride." Later, he told me he had never seen himself as a good father. He always focused on the moments when he wasn't patient, wasn't present, wasn't perfect. But that night, as he read what he had written, he said it felt like someone rested a hand on his shoulder and whispered, "Look again." Self-respect is not born from perfection. It's born from honesty. One honest moment a day is enough to start reshaping the way you see yourself. Let me share one more thing I've learned. The inner critic speaks in absolutes. Always, never, everyone, no one. But your moments of integrity live in specifics. I stayed calm even though I was frustrated. I told the truth even though it felt risky. I helped someone even though I was tired. I walked away from something that wasn't right for me. I forgave someone who didn't even ask to be forgiven. Those specific moments become anchors, small truths that tether you to who you really are. So when the critic says, "You never get it right," you can quietly answer, "Actually, Here is proof that I do. I once worked with a young man at a marketing firm who told me he felt like an imposter every single day. He was bright, talented, creative, but he only ever saw his shortcomings. After 10 days of the practice, he said something I'll never forget. He said, "I'm realizing that the version of me I criticize is only half the story, and not even the interesting half." I smiled because he was discovering something precious. Self-respect grows when you stop treating your mistakes as your identity. Now I want to take you deeper, because seeing your good moments is only the beginning. Understanding why they matter, that's what transforms you. When you write about a moment each night, you're doing something powerful. You're not just documenting your day, you are affirming your values. If you write, "I listened," the value is patience. If you write, "I apologized," the value is humility. If you write, "I showed up," the value is responsibility. If you write, "I tried again," the value is perseverance. If you write, "I set a boundary," the value is self-respect. This is where the real change begins. You stop measuring your worth by outcomes. You start measuring it by who you choose to be. That single shift has changed lives more quietly and more deeply than almost anything else I've ever shared with people. Because outcomes depend on 1,000 moving parts, other people, timing, circumstances. But values depend on one person, you. I remember telling a friend during a hard season in his life, "You're carrying the weight of results that are not in your control, but your integrity, that's always yours. And it's already enough to be proud of." He looked down at the table, took a long breath, and said, "I don't know how to believe that." Most people don't, not at first. That's why this practice isn't something you do once. It's something you return to every night for 21 nights. It takes repetition to undo repetition. It takes gentleness to unlearn harshness. It takes attention to remember who you are. Let me bring you into another story. I met a woman at a community center in a quiet suburb in Ohio. She was a mother of 3. She was juggling work, school schedules, homework, dinners, and 1,000 invisible tasks that parents carry every single day. She told me she often went to bed feeling like she had failed everyone. Her kids, her boss, her spouse, herself. During the practice, she wrote one evening, "Today I comforted my daughter when she was upset, even though I was exhausted." When she described why it mattered, she wrote, "It mattered because I chose presence over impatience." She told me she had never, ever thought of herself as patient. But there it was, in her own handwriting. A moment that proved she was more than the harsh voice in her head. And that's the heart of this whole journey. You're not inventing a new version of yourself. You're remembering the version that has been there all along. Now let's talk about something that surprises people at the end of the practice. By day 21, the goal is not just to create a habit of journaling, though many people keep going. The goal is to create a new internal reference point. Before the practice, most people judge themselves with the voice of fear. After the practice, they start judging themselves with the voice of truth. And truth is gentler. Truth is wiser. Truth is more human. But maybe the most powerful gift of these 21 evenings is this. You begin to trust yourself again. You trust that you will act with integrity when it matters. You trust that you will choose what aligns with your values. You trust that you are becoming someone you can respect. That trust becomes a quiet strength, not loud, not boastful, just steady. Now I want to guide you into the practical steps. This is where reflection becomes transformation. Everything we've talked about, the inner critic, the forgotten moments of integrity, the slow rebuilding of self-respect, leads right here to the practices that reshape you from the inside out. So let's step gently into these practices, not as rules, not as obligations, as invitations. I don't believe people grow by force. They grow through clarity, through honesty, through small, consistent acts of self-kindness. These practices are simple, and in my experience, the simple things are the ones that stay. Practice 1 is the one-moment reflection. This is the heart of the journey. Every night, choose one moment, just one, where you acted in alignment with your values. Not a moment of success, a moment of truth. The formula is simple. One moment, one sentence describing what you did, one short paragraph describing why it mattered. That's it. Here's how you might begin today. Sit somewhere quiet for a couple of minutes. On the couch, on your bed, in the passenger seat of your parked car. Ask yourself, where today did I choose integrity over comfort? Wait for the first moment that rises. Don't overthink it. Write down that moment. Then write why it mattered, not to the world, but to you. Close your notebook and breathe in the simple feeling of being someone who tries. This single practice retrains your attention. It turns you from a critic into a witness. Practice 2 deepens the first. It's about naming the value behind the choice. What you did is important, but the value behind it is what restores your sense of identity. Each night, ask yourself, what value did I express? Was it honesty, courage, patience, kindness, responsibility, boundaries, presence, humility? The moment is the evidence. The value is the meaning. Try this today. After you've written your moment, choose one word that represents the value. Say that word out loud, softly but clearly. Notice how it feels to hear your own voice affirm something good about you. Write one sentence about how that value showed up in your day. Carry that word with you into tomorrow. This is how your values become anchors. Practice 3 is about rewriting the inner voice. I've long believed that action breeds confidence, and this is one of those actions that begins to rewrite the way you speak to yourself. Each night, after you've written your moment and named its value, take just a few seconds for this. Write one supportive sentence to yourself. Something like, you handled that with grace. You chose honesty today. You stayed gentle with someone who needed it. You showed courage even though you were afraid. It may feel awkward at first. Most people are much more comfortable encouraging others than encouraging themselves. But that one small sentence is the seed of a new inner voice. Try it this evening. After your reflection, pause. Write one warm sentence of support to yourself. Keep it simple. Keep it true. Reread it once. Let it land. You're building a voice that protects you, not punishes you. Practice 4 is what I call the 3-month question. This came from a conversation in a crowded coffee shop. A man told me he felt lost, disconnected from himself, unsure what he really stood for. So I asked him a question he didn't expect. In 3 months, who do you hope to look back on yourself as? Not, what do you want to achieve, but who do you want to become? When you pair this long view question with your nightly reflection, something powerful starts to happen. You begin making choices today that your future self will respect. Try this once tonight. Sit quietly for a moment before bed. Ask yourself, who am I becoming? Write down 3 qualities you hope to strengthen. Keep the list short. Keep it close, maybe inside your notebook. Let those qualities guide what you notice in your reflections. This question gives direction to your integrity. Practice 5 is what I call the boundary of enough. For many of us, this is the hardest one, especially if we've lived under the weight of perfectionism. Each night after you've written your reflection, end with one simple sentence. Today was enough because I tried. Say it gently. Say it honestly. Say it even if a part of you doesn't fully believe it yet. This practice teaches self-respect at its core. You are not worthy because you succeeded. You are worthy because you showed up. Here's how to ground this tonight. After your supportive sentence, write, "Today was enough because I tried." Reread it slowly, letting each word soften your chest a little. Close your notebook with intention, like closing the door on self-judgment for the night. Place it beside your bed as a reminder that today is complete. Allow yourself to rest without needing to earn it. This is how you teach your nervous system that effort itself carries dignity. Now, let me draw all of these practices together, because together they form something larger than any one step. Over the next 21 days, these small, nightly choices begin to shift the foundation inside you. Little by little, you stop measuring your worth by outcomes. You start noticing your courage, your patience, your honesty, your kindness. You start recognizing your own integrity, not as a rare event, but as a daily companion. And slowly, you begin walking through your days differently. Not more perfectly, but more truthfully, more gently, more aligned with who you know deep down you really are. Before we close, I want to offer you one last reflection, the one I hope you'll carry long after these 21 evenings are over. Self-respect is not a reward, it's a relationship. And like any relationship, it grows through small moments of presence, truth, and kindness. Every night you choose one moment to honor, you are choosing yourself. Every night you write a sentence of support, you are becoming your own ally. Every night you look at who you were, not just what you achieved, you are laying another stone in the foundation of your identity. When the 21 days end, you won't just have a notebook full of reflections. You'll have a voice inside you that knows how to speak with respect. A voice that recognizes your effort, that remembers your values, that stands beside you instead of against you. And that voice, that gentle, steady companion, will walk with you into every room, into every challenge, into every decision. Let me leave you with this. Tomorrow is still uncertain. It always is. But tonight you can choose one moment that honors who you are becoming. Tomorrow might never look the way you expect, but today is here. And today is asking you to live it with kindness toward yourself. Just one honest moment, one small act of respect. Begin there, and let the rest grow night by night.